Welcome to the BMX Commentator Podcast with your host, BMX World Cup and World Championship commentator, Rich Eames. You'll hear casual yet in-depth stories from BMX athletes and coaches, industry leaders, and all manner of BMX-connected people as we dive deep behind the scenes into what makes BMX racing the best sport on two wheels. Grab a spicy snack and your favorite beverage and get ready to listen in as the gate drops on yet another killer BMX conversation.
All right, hello, welcome back to the BMX Commentator Podcast, episode number 17. A little bit different this time around, simply because somebody who was supposed to organise a guest for this podcast didn't actually get around to doing it. So rather than miss out on my usual every other Friday upload, I wanted to do at least something. I don't want to miss it. I don't want to drop that consistency. So I needed to think pretty quickly. So I came up with the idea of a Ask Me Anything podcast. I didn't really particularly want to have myself on as a guest because I introduced the thing and, you know, people probably get sick of my voice anyway, but I needed to fill a gap this week. So that is literally the only reason you've got an Ask Me Anything podcast. So, I'm just going to go through some questions that came in via Instagram, some that came in via DM, text message. I'm sure one even arrived by carrier pigeon. I can't remember which one it was, but going to go through some questions. Just anything that you've ever wanted to know about me or as a podcast host, as a commentator, anything like that. Some people sent one question, some people sent two, and a certain person sent six. So some people are pretty keen to hear what I've got to say. So let's just dive straight into it. So I'll start with a comedy question because two people asked me more or less the same thing. Connor Hedges from CH Coaching and Performance and Julian Allen both mentioned the Wigan Kebab, which, if you're unaware, a Wigan Kebab is supposed to be 3 pies on a stick. So I never actually had that. When I was growing up in Wigan in the late 80s, early 90s as a teenager, the thing in Wigan was what we called the Wigan Big Mac. So you would go to the bakery of your choice, Pools Pies, Galloway's, or as it was known then, Hampson's, Green Arches, whoever it was, get yourself a really nice steak pie and stick it on a buttered pound cake. That was the Wigan Big Mac. So that was the thing that we ate when we were at college and that kind of stuff. And for the record as well, it is only ever a barm cake. It's not a cob. It's not a roll. It's not a bread cake. It's not a tea cake. It's not anything along those lines. It is literally a barm cake. That is the argument over. If anybody wants to argue with me about it, feel free to come and see me at a national and I will gladly prove you wrong. But barm cake is the only name of choice for a round bread, buttered, whatever it is. So Wigan Big Mac. No Wigan Kebabs, Wigan Big Mac. So Julian Allen, Connor Hedges. There you go, gents. That's the way it goes. So I think I'll go through Connor's questions first because he did send me quite a few. The first one he sent me was, I remember your commentary line for line from my first Brits win. Is there any race you remember line for line, or is it different for commentators? Yeah, it is different for commentators in that you do that many finals and you do them that fast. It's very difficult for things to kind of stick in your head, like in its entirety. You do remember certain lines that come out of your mouth, and I'm pleased to say that a lot of people do come up to me and say, I remember this commentary from this race, and my lad knows it, word for word. I've had that said to me a few times, and it's a lovely position to be in, but like complete races never really stick in my head. It's always been certain lines. So, the one that kind of immediately jumps out for me is, the Olympic finals in 2012 in London, being the stadium commentator and being able to say, Mariana Pajon is your Olympic champion and Maurice Strombergs is your Olympic champion as they cross the finish line. So, being privileged enough to do that, I think is just, probably one of the best things I've ever done and really enjoyed it. So, no complaints whatsoever. what else sticks in my mind as a commentator? I think I said something after Beth Shriever won in Papendal when she won a world title there, and I said, if you're going to be a believer in Shriever. I wish I'd dropped that one in as she came down the final straight, because I think TV would have loved that one, although I didn't, because I thought to myself, might get myself in a bit of trouble with the powers that be. So, left it for afterwards. That was another good one. And, just being able to be a part of the biggest moments of somebody's career is probably one of the best parts of being a commentator. I've had, again, the same question from Connor and also from somebody else who I'll get to in a minute. It's in my photographs. I'll just name check the other person who gave me the same question about actually getting into commentary. Let me just find it. I will just whiz through the questions. It's in there somewhere. Oh, can't find it. Anyway, somebody did ask me that question. 2 people have asked me that question about how I got into commentary. So the abbreviated story that I won't go on about for too long is that if you remember the kind of late 90s, early 2000s at Coppell, we used to have a race called the Grands, which ran on the Bank Holiday Monday after the UK BMX Series National that we had there. At one point, it was MBMXA as well. And we had GB, BMXF. We've had so many different variations of word soup of our governing body before we all ended up under British Cycling. But we used to do the Grands there on a Bank Holiday Monday after the National. So they were short of a commentator for that one. I was asked if I would step in, and I very foolishly said yes, I would do it. And I don't know why. I don't know if I was racing that day or not, but I stepped up, did it. I can't remember who I actually commentated with or whether it was on my own. But, did that race. Had a really good time, really enjoyed it. Just brought that, energy to the fore that I always try and bring with commentary. And, that turned into doing club races, which turned into doing regionals, which turned into doing nationals. And, I used to race and do commentary, which was borderline insane, considering our nationals at that point were like 250, 300 riders. And it was myself and the now sadly departed Pete Kirk, who gave me my opportunity to be a commentator. I'll be forever grateful for, Pete's help and advice. And it was a very sad day when we lost him to throat cancer, I believe it was. But Pete was an absolute legend. Taught me a few tricks, but I just loved his chilled out, laid back demeanour. That was the best thing about Pete Kirk. And he was an absolutely top notch bloke. So can't fault him, honestly. Just loved it. And that was the impetus that I had to kind of start commentating. I mean, even when I started BMX, the gentleman who took me to my first BMX race was actually the guy who was the local commentator down at Midlanks. This story's actually on my Instagram at BMX Commentator if you want to go and check it out. There's a video on there from a race in 1991. And the gentleman doing the commentary was a guy called Eddie Sim. Now, Eddie lived one street over from me. His son, Dave, who's about 5 years older than I am, he was like the local fast kid. He had a Chrome Robinson. His bikes were cool as all the time, always dialed, always looked good. Dave used to race at Midlanks, Three Sisters, them kind of places. He'd bunny hop over the kids in the street, and I'd be one of those willing little idiots who'd lie down and let him bunny hop over the top of me. I'd follow him round on my rally burner whilst he was riding this nice, shiny Robinson. He was definitely the cool kid in the neighbourhood when it came to BMX. And after David retired and started work, I think Eddie was looking for a new protege, shall we say, and he offered to, take me up to Midlanks to go and try BMX racing. I'd always ridden my bike. I used to ride at Three Sisters because I lived a short bike ride from there when I was, a kid growing up, and that was where we spent our summer holidays, just razzing around, turning up there at 11 o'clock in the morning, coming home at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. No food, no drinks, no nothing, just riding all day long. But yeah, Dave's dad, Eddie, was the first guy to take me to Midlanks. I actually recall my very first race at Midlands. It was a club race on a Wednesday evening. Got to the top of the hill and was in a motor with Darren Reedy, Flemdog, and Dylan Clayton. All in the same motor, my first ever race. I didn't quit and go home there and then. I've got absolutely no idea. But yeah, Eddie was the man who kind of took me to those races, and he just happened to be a commentator. And he was one of those guys who was, you know, as excitable as I am when a gate drops. If you watch that video on my Instagram, you'll see and hear how enthusiastic Eddie was. He was just an absolute legend. There's no two ways about it. And again, sadly, he's no longer with us, but if he was, then I'd definitely be buying him a pint and thanking him for, you know, sending me on this trajectory that's taken me to, you know, all the places that I've been with BMX commentary. So yeah, that's how the BMX commentary journey started, with the help of Eddie Sim and Pete Kirk. If you'd have told me when I was, 16 years old, that, you know, 34 years later, you'd still be involved in BMX and you'd be, you know, commentating on the biggest races in the sport, I'd have just laughed, basically. I would never, ever have believed you. So yeah, that's the kind of the short version of say short, it wasn't really that short, was it? But it was the version of me getting into commentary, and was just given an opportunity and took it. And I think if there's any kids out there who have really fancied being a commentator, just having a go, just find an opportunity somewhere, just have a try and get involved, be it a club race or something like that. Just tell them you're keen, do what you can to actually have a go. Give it everything that you've got. I have no doubt the first time you go on and do commentary as a kid, if you've not got a natural aptitude for it, it will look and sound absolutely terrible. And I know my initial forays into commentary could have been a hell of a lot better. But, you know, if you've got an opportunity at a club race, just try it. Just get in and have a go, because at one time, commentary was the job that nobody wanted. It was like somebody's dad ended up getting press ganged into doing it. It was not a particularly, you know, thankless task, shall we say. It was just like, we need somebody to commentate these races. So, yeah, I remember a lot of shocking commentary over the years. I'm hoping mine doesn't fall into that category. But, you know, you've got to start somewhere. So if you're a kid and you want to have a go, then just have a go and see where it takes you. But expect to work for, you know, 20 years plus before anything happens of any real significance. It takes a long time to get to where you need to be. And I think the only reason I ended up getting bigger commentary jobs, I think, was the fact that I just stuck at it, and I just did it because I loved it. And, you know, from standing in the pouring rain at Midlands, which I'm still doing to this day, and then, you know, races like, I remember one in particular, the National at Hartlepool, which I think was 2006, 7 maybe. I can't remember. I'm sure Steve Noble will be able to correct me on that one. There was a National at Hartlepool. The weekend was absolutely blazing hot. I stood on a berm on my own for 2 days, did all the commentary, and I'll never forget coming home from that National and just feeling absolutely blasted. I was so tired. I was sunburnt. I think I borderline had heat stroke as well. I just absolutely smashed myself over 2 days. So that's one of those commentary jobs that, you know, immediately springs to mind as being memorable. But yeah, it's taken me everywhere that I've been in BMX. I've been to, you know, multiple world championships, Olympics, Euro rounds, and bizarrely enough, I haven't ridden a bike at any of them. It's all been commentary. So I never did a Worlds as a rider, but I've done multiple ones as a commentator, and, you know, been absolutely blessed to have the best job in BMX. So next question I actually had twice, at Hasselhoff on Instagram. And I also had it from Dr. Jason Richardson as well, my good friend. And the question was, what other sport would you love to commentate? So I suppose there's a few answers to this. I think anything with two wheels would be absolutely amazing. I love all two-wheeled sport, road, mountain bike, motocross, MotoGP, you name it, I pretty much love it, and I'll sit and watch it. But I think if I was to commentate on another sport, it would be AMA Supercross. I am a huge Supercross fan. I've been watching it since 1996 when Jeremy McGrath was the big thing. And there was no, Supercross streaming service. There was no YouTube. There was no, no internet at all, really, for that kind of stuff. So I used to get my AMA Supercross fix by purchasing a VHS video mail order every year, and it was called Bar to Bar. And you had to order it out of the back of a magazine. This is like, I'm proper dating myself now, but bar-to-bar videos were just the best thing in existence because you got 14 rounds of AMA Supercross, and it was just the raddest thing on planet Earth. I also remember, setting the video recorder to record the AMA Supercross highlights that would be on Channel 5, I think, at like 2:30 a.m. in the morning, and getting up ridiculously early and running downstairs before everybody was up and watching the highlights of the racing on a crap VHS video cassette before I went to school, college, work, whatever it was at the time. We used to love doing that. And AMA Supercross is kind of like my second love, so to speak, after BMX. So yeah, I love a bit of Supercross. So that would be a good one. But in terms of like other commentary opportunities that have been afforded to me, I was lucky enough to do the Youth Road Championships on like a closed circuit in Bradford. I think it was last year. And I've never done a road race before, ever. And it was certainly a fairly insane day's commentary because I turned up there. I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea who anybody was. I hadn't met the person who'd booked me. So I rocked up at this facility on the outskirts of Bradford and met this lady called Mandy, and she's like, "There's your microphone, Rich. There's your list of riders. Crack on." So I made a full day out of it, and there's nothing more challenging than going into a sport that you know nothing about and then watching a group of 14-year-olds ride around a road circuit for an hour and having to talk about who was there. And luckily, the likes of Jamie Rabbit was there with his dad, and the Winkleys were there. So there was a few names that I actually recognised, but nothing really happened for like 59 minutes and 30 seconds, and then it all came down to a sprint finish. And I spent a full day talking about that, and I have to this day I've still got no idea how I did it. So yeah, it was pretty insane, but like I enjoyed the challenge at the same time. I enjoyed getting my teeth into something different after 20 odd years of BMX commentary. It's good. I'd love to do some mountain bike stuff. I did a little bit of four-cross stuff back in the day at the place that's near Banbury, I think it was. I can't remember the name of the track. I'm sure Scott Beaumont will know it. Did some commentary there. I think that's basically it for stuff outside of BMX. And the other sport that's, a very long-time passion of mine is rugby league. Big rugby fan, living in Wigan. We've got Wigan Warriors as, part of my life growing up. Watched them all the time as a kid. So I love a bit of Super League and I love a bit of NRL. And my most respected commentators in other sports are actually the guys who do the NRL coverage on Fox in Australia. I think I've mentioned this before on a podcast. I think it was Alistair Burton's podcast, because they bring in a mix of technicality. They have a little bit of humour in there. The flow of the commentary is just utterly amazing. I really enjoy it. And I'm also a big fan of the darts commentary as well. I think when you watch that 9-dart finish of Luke Littler's from the Darts World Championships last year, I think it was, or maybe even last year, because it was Luke Littler's first championships. If you watch that 9-dart finish of Luke's and you listen to the commentary on that particular piece of action, it's probably one of the best pieces of commentary I think I've ever heard. I absolutely thought it was just brilliant. So I kind of pick up inspiration from, all kinds of places, and, darts is quite an unusual one, but by the same token, like I said, from a technical standpoint, can't fault it. So there we go. Next question from Boklein Hesselink, my very tall Dutch friend out there in the Netherlands. Bit more kind of current affairs, this one. Only 3 venues for the 25 UCI BMX SX World Cup season. That's not acceptable at all. What is wrong? Well, we could go in a variety of different directions on this one. I think it's just a combination of factors, really. I mean, we're outside of an Olympic qualifying cycle. We're coming off the back of a shortened Olympic cycle last time around. It's notoriously difficult to, I think, build a World Cup season following an Olympics. I mean, I remember after the 2012 Olympics, and they had a World Cup in Abbotsford in Canada, and half the riders didn't go. So there's that to consider. Also, like the cost of putting a World Cup on now, it's not cheap, no matter where you do it and how you do it. I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of the costings and that kind of stuff, but, it requires a significant investment on the part of, the host town, whatever it might be. There's a lot that goes into a World Cup. So, maybe it's just a symptom of those times and the fact that everything costs a lot more now. And, maybe towns and cities that would have had one back in the day just haven't got the finances in place right now to actually put a race on in a non-Olympic qualifying season. I think, if we were talking about 2027 and 2028, maybe even 2026, it would have been a case of, there'd be more people queuing up to organise one of those things. I think it's just something that we've got to deal with for a year. And then I think as we get closer to the next Olympics, the amount of World Cups per season will go up. I mean, I'd love to see, at least 6 venues per year, 12 rounds, I think would be the absolute sweet spot. 5's good, so I think 6 would be better. But, it's finding those places. But with the upcoming season, at least, there's 2 in mainland Europe. You can do Sarrions and Papendal back to back. And then, a bit of overseas travel to go out to Santiago del Estero for the last round, which is, always a good trip. I've been fortunate enough to do it twice. It's long, it's painful, sitting in an economy seat for 14 hours. But, once you get there, it's absolutely worth it. The South American fans are amazing. And it's probably 2 of the most memorable BMX trips I think I've ever had. So a quick look at another question. Again, this ties into the World Cups as well. My good friend Julian Allen again asking, how did the UCI gig come about? The UCI gig came about long before I actually started doing World Cups, which sounds a little bit bizarre, but I'll explain. When I did my first UCI World Cup as a stadium commentator at Manchester in 2013, I think it was. Obviously, the coverage there was still done by BMX Live TV. And I just basically went there to do my job, but I also, not for any other kind of reasons of trying to get myself into another position. That was never the thought process in my mind. I was just stoked to be there, absolutely loved it, and just made a point of speaking to as many people as possible, being helpful, trying to add value where I could. And just my only desire was to, walk away at the end of that weekend and people go, I like working with Rich. He's a really nice lad. He does his best. He works hard. He's great at what he does. And I did that literally every time I saw the crew from BMX Live TV over the years, and just built those relationships slowly and organically, I suppose is the best way to describe it. And then, when the time came about for me to start doing World Cups, I got that, email in 2018, the early part of 2018, and I still remember to this day, I read the email and I still couldn't believe it. It was just like, we'd love you to come and do the World Cups for us. I had a couple of conversations with various parties. I don't know if it was an interview or just an informal phone call, and then, got told that, they wanted me on board and they'd be flying me out to Paris for, the World Cup at St. Quentin-en-Yvelines in 2018, and that was the first time of working with Jason Richardson, who is, still one of my good friends to this day. And yeah, it all started from there, and I just kept doing the best job that I could possibly do. Just tried to add value where I could, and just let that excitement and that natural enthusiasm for the sport of BMX just come through, because, it is the best sport on two wheels. It is what I love to do. It is the sport I'm most passionate about. Really couldn't give a rat's ass about football. I mean, I'm a Wigan Athletic fan, so that tells you I don't know much about football. But, I could live without all the other sports in the world, but BMX racing's just, the best ever. And I just tried to make the most of it. So yeah, and that's how it's come about. So I don't know what else to say about that, really. That's basically it. Moving on to some other questions kind of about the UK scene, I suppose. I had a question through from Buttery BMX, which I think is Wayne Buttery, Noah's dad. Noah rides in the same age group as my lad, and they, despite the height difference between the two, they get on very, very well. So yeah, big shout out to Noah. But the question was, from your viewpoint, what is the most competitive / exciting age group of the UK series? I mean, the obvious answer is the 13s at the minute, because that is the age group that, my lad's in, and Noah's in, and various others. But that whole gamut of ages from 13, 14, 15, 16, they're all just phenomenal age groups. The racing is so close. The strength and depth of the talent that's in there at the minute is just getting so high. I mean, it's ridiculous. It really is ridiculous. But it's just proof that our sport is in a good place, because, we've just had a Brits with 1,400 riders, and my first national had 250 riders. I went to Milton Keynes on an April weekend and did basically what was a glorified regional. And over the years, it's grown and grown and grown, and we're now in the strongest spot we've ever been in. So, all age groups are super competitive and phenomenal to watch. There's not a single age group I think that I don't enjoy watching. I enjoy watching them all. But yeah, from 13 to 16 is just brilliant. The 13-year-olds clearly, hold a special place for me. And watching, Nathaniel, Noah, Nate Hamilton, Ty DS, Oliver Tyers, Heath Osborne, Isaac Shaw, all those kids, just, it's amazing. But the thing that I love most about that age group in particular is those boys are growing up and making memories together, and they'll hold those memories and those friendships for the rest of their lives. And they don't realize how good they've got it, with parents paying to take them everywhere, and just, yeah, they're just racing. They're living the pro life every single weekend. They go where they need to go, they race, they hang out with the mates. It's just phenomenal. And I just want not only my own son, but every other kid in that age group to just soak it up for as long as humanly possible, because there'll be a day when then those friendships are not no longer there, but they don't see each other, and they'll look back and just think those were like the best days. So yeah, 13, 14, 15, 16s, stunning racing. Absolutely love it. Other age groups, I enjoy watching the older cruiser classes, just because they are my peers, and it's utterly hilarious to see how competitive they still are, and the fact that some of them are still taking it very seriously. John Bentley, I'm talking to you. The fact that everybody's still getting stuck in, still getting involved, still racing as hard as they can, but by the same token as well, they've got to think, well, I've got work on Monday morning, so I'm going to have to be a little bit careful. But it doesn't matter when the gate drops, and they're still into it, and they're still bashing bars at 50 years old, and Alan Hill is still winning British titles. So yeah, absolutely love it. Next question from Chris Jackson, Benny's dad. What was the highlight of your riding career? Honestly, ending it, I think, was the highlight of my riding career. I was bang average as a BMX racer. I had little flurries of showing what I was truly capable of, winning motos, making national finals, British Championship finals, that kind of stuff in like 25 plus and 30 plus when it was that kind of thing. And I had a couple of good seasons on Cruiser, 30 to 39. There's still a photograph out there of me leading Jeff Dovey and Dave Godfrey and James Christie down the first straight at Burnham. That's a particularly memorable photograph. But honestly, I think once it was over and I could just focus all my time on commentary and just do what I actually truly loved, I think that was the highlight of it all. Although it was massively painful at the time, because my riding days ended at a national at Cheddar. Obviously, if you've been in BMX for any length of time, you'll remember the track at Cheddar. And I crashed on that first straight and just like smashed myself up. I cracked a vertebra in my back. And I kind of knew after that crash that it was over. I mean, there was other stuff going on in the background as well. Getting ready to start a family and all that kind of stuff. So I was at that tipping point where, BMX wasn't the most important thing anymore, or at least racing wasn't. So I kind of made the decision to step away. And that decision wasn't taken lightly. I did take it kind of fairly instinctively in the kind of the days after that crash. I think when your time's up. I think if you're thinking to yourself, is this it? Should I be done with racing now? I think the answer's already been made up in your own head. So I decided, that was it. I was done. Commentary only. But I was pretty miserable about it for a good year afterwards. It genuinely speaking, it really upset me. I was pretty pissed off about it for 10 months, and it took me a long time before I summed up the energy to actually get back on a bike. It was quite depressing at the time, I think is the best way to describe it. But in the long term, it has worked out to be kind of the right thing to do. So I'll leave it at that, I suppose. Another big question, we could go a long way with this one. In fact, just hang on, because I need a quick drink because my throat is going dry. Just bear with me. This one comes in from, I think it's Rick Poole, Elizabeth's dad. What do you think BMX and British cycling need to do to encourage growth and development? God, how many ways could we go with that one? Yeah, I think the most important thing for BMX to grow is that there needs to be a humongous amount of effort put into the grassroots of the sport. Now, at one point, for me, like riding nationals was the be all and end all. It was the only thing that really mattered, and my head was like totally into the national series and that kind of stuff. But over the years, I've kind of come to realise that the grassroots is where it's at. Bringing kids into the sport, bringing novices in, developing them, that kind of thing. I used to really love the novice racing at Racing Under the Roof. I thought it was a great platform for bringing kids into the sport. Unfortunately, we don't do that anymore, but, I think it's a series or a part of the series that's sorely missed, and I hope it returns at some point. But I think clubs in the UK, some of them are like absolutely superbly good at developing the young rider base. The one that immediately springs to mind is Bruntwood. I think the setup is absolutely amazing. Preston do a good job of bringing kids in. But I think you've got to think of it, I'm probably teaching people to suck eggs here, but think of it like a pyramid and get that bottom part of the pyramid as wide as possible. And I think as well for clubs' long-term stability, I think the more riders you've got in at the lowest level, the novices, the newbies, the young kids, the more of those kids you've got, the more stable your club actually is, because it brings in enthusiastic parents. It brings in, people who are willing to spend money at your facility, every single week. It used to be that, for Mid-Lancs at one time, their entire season was funded by, the track, their maintenance, all that kind of stuff was funded by the money that they made from putting a national on. And there's, little if no money left at the moment to be made after a national weekend. The costs are becoming astronomical. The facilities are struggling to cope with the amount of riders. Hence the reason we've been back to Derby for the Brits so many times, because they're the only people with the infrastructure, I think, to kind of carry it off for the amount of people that are there. We're kind of at a situation now where I think if a club has got, let's say they've got 150 to 200 regular riders coming and riding that facility, whether it's gates, coaching, whatever it might be, if you've got a really big wide base and they spend maybe 30 quid a month on coaching, bit of snack food, that kind of stuff, entry fees, 150 to 200 kids spending 30 to 40 quid a month, that's a substantial amount of monthly income coming into a club, and it can all be generated back into the facility. For me, it's just a no-brainer. It's like, get as many kids as you can into the club. Clubs should almost be like, well, not that they're not, but like community facilities, which obviously most of them are. They're run by volunteers, but to develop that community and that pride around the club and have kids turning up at races, I'd love to see way more kids at nationals wearing club jerseys and just having that pride in their club rather than, jumping onto a team or whatever at the first opportunity. And I know our sport's changed slightly, and, the fact that there are so many teams now is good for the sport in terms of the fact that people are prepared to invest time and money and that kind of stuff. But, I also remember the days of seeing a kid in a Peterborough Pirates jersey or a Mid-Lancs jersey or I'm trying to think of another club that I used to see jerseys for all the time, like a Cheshire Ghost Riders jersey. And there's just that whole side of it's dropped away now a little bit, and I really do miss that. So, if you've got the opportunity to race in your club jersey, then I would suggest do it. But in answer to the question, to grow the sport, get deep into the grassroots, get as many kids involved as you can at the local level. Because like guys like Donnie Robinson, who runs his program out of Napa Valley BMX, I think it is, out in Northern California, he runs those beginner leagues, and they're oversubscribed, and he's got 150 kids turning up every single time to be a part of it, and he's doing it the right way. So I love what he actually does there, and I think Donnie Robinson's model is one that we should really be looking at and developing the sport that way. I mean, going up further up the chain, there's been that many changes over the years on like the development setup and the talent pathway. I think it changes every 12 months anyway. So yeah, I'll leave that one alone. But I think the key message for developing BMX is get those grassroots and plant them deep. So that would be my overriding message for growth and development of BMX in the UK. Let's have a quick look for other questions. Dave Hall, former podcast guest. Who makes the best T-shirts in BMX? Do you know, Dave? I actually know a guy. Struggling to remember his name. Struggling. Do you know what? I can see it in my mind's eye. I see that stall at every race. Just can't quite remember the name of the brand. I'm joking. B73. Love B73. Big shout out to Dave. He's an absolute legend. Another one from, I don't know if that's A. Miles Davies or it actually reads two ways. Amy Les Davies as well, which I think it's wrong, but I'll go with Miles Davies because that's probably right. The question says, old school, mid school, new school, UK GOAT, male and female. Jesus Christ, that's like 6 questions in one. God, that's a hard one. Old school UK BMX legend, male and female. I was always an Andy Ruffle fan as a kid growing up. The fact that he was on telly doing what he did and making it look so easy, I suppose that was like an early influence on the commentary as well. So yeah, Andy Ruffle for my old school GOAT. Sarah Jane Nichols, who I'm delighted to say is back racing. It's an absolute pleasure to watch Sarah Jane Nichols on the track every week. She's certainly my female old school GOAT. And I would never ever refer to Sarah Jane Nichols as a GOAT in any other context because it sounds slightly disrespectful. But when it comes to riding a BMX bike, definitely the GOAT. Mid school, male and female GOAT. Mid school. I think for just the fact that he won 3 world titles. I mean, there's so many people you could put into this particular category, but the first name that immediately springs to mind is Dylan Clayton. Couple of reasons, 3 world titles as an amateur, went pro, lived the dream, rode for the all-conquering Sun Chippy team, teammate of Christophe Levesque's, but his skill on a bike was just untouchable. Absolutely untouchable. And on the rare occasion I see him riding a bike these days, he still looks bloody amazing now. And he's also an absolutely fantastic coach to a lot of kids. So, my mid-school GOATs for the males is Dylan Clayton, definitely. Probably closely followed by Dale Holmes. And I don't think we've got to the point where we actually have a new school GOAT yet. There's so many riders that I enjoy watching and respect in the quote-unquote new school. But I don't think anybody's reached GOAT status yet. As for a mid-school female greatest of all time out of the UK, God, I can't think of one off the top of my head. I think I might just have to come back to that question. So yeah. Next question, Adam Curry, my good friend out of Australia, former coach of the Thai national squad and podcast guest. Describe the type of homework you do before you commentate a World Cup. I go through all the results from the previous season, watch all the races back. Sometimes I'll even dip back into the series before, just go on bmxresults.com. Look at all the stats, that kind of thing. Keep an eye on riders' social media. I'm constantly making notes and kind of building a picture of certain riders. And if I see something that's interesting, then I'll make a note of it as well. I have like everything in a folder, basically, that I take with me when I go and do commentary at the World Cup level. When I'm doing the remote stuff, it's sat in front of me on the desk. When I'm doing that, I don't have a huge amount of time to flick through it when in the midst of a live broadcast, but I just like the fact that I've got it there because it gives me the opportunity to look at it if I need to. Most of it's already kind of like stacked up in my head, but I do take the time to kind of research everything, rewatch everything. I feel like if I didn't do the work and I needed it, in the midst of commentary, I needed to pull out like a factoid or something like that, and I didn't have that there, I kind of feel like I wouldn't be doing my job properly. And then the other thing is when I actually do go to, a World Cup event or a World Championships, I spend a huge amount of time walking around the pits pre-race, and I make a point of talking to as many people as humanly possible. So coaches, riders, whoever it might be, photographers. I'm constantly kind of just, I think the old school word is networking, but it's just taking an interest in other people and what they do, and talking to them about things that I've seen online, and just trying to delve deep into the stories, because you do get those, those gems about things that you wouldn't normally hear. I'm not one of those people who will literally just turn up, sit in the booth, knock out generic commentary and then just walk away. I have to be fully immersed in a World Cup weekend if I'm there, and I spend a huge amount of time just chatting to folk, and just, people know me before, as well as, other people that they see on the tour, because, like it or not, this accent certainly does stand out, this Wigan accent. And I've walked into many team tents and people have gone, who the bloody hell's this guy? And then I've opened my mouth and they've gone, I know who that is. And you get welcomed in with open arms. It's lovely. The fact that I can go into the USA tent, have a chat with Jamie Staff, have a chat with Elise Willoughby, then walk into the Australia tent and tease Matt Allen about not doing any real work, have a chat with Lauren Reynolds, and then go to the French tent and speak to somebody else. It's just years and years of networking, chatting, being interested in other people, and I think that's the key thing. I'm always interested in what other people have got going on and what they've got to say, and you get some absolute gems out of that. So yeah, networking at races is certainly one of those things. But yeah, watching the races, looking at the results, doing the homework, writing the notes, having it all there is an absolutely huge part of it. So yeah, I hope that answers the question, Adam. Just going back to Connor Hedges and some of his other questions. Let's have a quick look. What's my most memorable commentary moment? I think the most memorable commentary moment for me is... there's some good ones, actually. There's some really random ones that you probably won't even know of. There's a video knocking around on YouTube of me doing commentary at a race, racing under the roof. I'm just pausing because I think somebody's going to come and walk into the room. I'm just going to pause for a little minute. All right, so we're back on. Sorry about that interruption. Just to prove to you that this is a complete one take. That was just my daughter coming rolling in. And then everyone was stood outside the room where I'm actually recording. So I just had to quickly nip out and have a conversation. So anyway, back to your regularly scheduled program. Most memorable commentary moment. That's what we were talking about. One of the random ones that springs to mind is from a racing under the roof round, one of the early ones. It's on YouTube. It was actually a runoff between Jack Clark and Scott Hamilton were the two riders involved. I think they were about 14 at the time, and it was in the days before scores, when people did do runoffs. And these two young lads absolutely went at it for the entire lap. There was double lead, more than 2 lead changes. I think there was 3 lead changes and a last gasp finish. And I used to make a point as well when there was a runoff to really, really ramp up the commentary and go absolutely mad about it, and really get the crowd involved, because those riders are running off for a position in the quarterfinal or whatever it might be, and there was a chance that, a quite big chance, that they weren't going to progress any further in that race. So this was almost like their final, and that was the way I always treated it. So yeah, the Scott Hamilton Jack Clark runoff racing under the roof. If you can find it on YouTube, it's utterly amazing. It's a great race, and you just get the slightly added bonus of listening to me rattle all over the back of it. So yeah, it's a phenomenal piece of racing, and yeah, genuinely enjoyed it. Some other good ones that spring to mind: Quillan Isadore's World Championship winners, a 16-year-old in Birmingham. That was another one that stands out in my mind because it ended up on the One Way Up movie, if you've ever watched that. The story of Peckham BMX Club. That was a really memorable race. Obviously, the Olympic ones are very memorable, and any World Championships as well. Did my first World Championship in 2018, the one in Baku. Myself and my former co-commentator, Dr. Jason Richardson, who I genuinely do miss working with. He's a top banana, he's Jason, a really nice fella. Had a really good time at the Baku Worlds. Did 2019 in Zolder with Tori Nyhag. That was another good one. Made memorable, not by the commentary, but by the actual trip to get there, involving a cancelled flight, a drive to Dover, like literally at the last minute, a ferry, and then driving all the way to Zolder to do the race, and then turn around and drive all the way back home on the Sunday. So that was, another piece of memorable World Championships commentary. But yeah, all the World Championship stuff, the World Cup stuff, those are the ones that kind of stand out in your mind, and then those are the little ones like that. There's so many, I could probably sit here and rattle off for like an hour on various bits of commentary that I've enjoyed over the years. Let's have a quick look. Which track has the best commentary setup, and why is it Birmingham? I don't know, Connor, is the answer to that one. I mean, Birmingham's always had a good setup there because you're in like quite a tight little arena, and it's not difficult to kind of get people involved. The atmosphere is always good at Birmingham. I do quite enjoy doing commentary at the indoor as well. Again, because we've got a really good PA system in there. The one that I don't enjoy doing commentary at is Cycle Park. I don't want to be negative about any facility in particular, but we've always seemed to struggle. I know they've had issues with the neighbours and stuff over the years, and noise and that kind of thing. But from a commentary perspective, because Cycle Park is so wide open, it's so windy. It's never really been able to have the atmosphere that I think it deserves. But that's just because of like the way the facility actually is, and its wide openness, and it's always been a struggle there with the PA system and the commentary. But the fact that any track puts a national on, you've got to be grateful for what you've got. So it's a minor negative in a sea of positives. So yeah. That's good. Let's have a quick look, just see if there's anything else. Not from Connor, I don't think. I'll just have a quick look at the other list of questions that I got as well, see if I've missed anything off. I don't think I have. Let's have a quick gander. Let's have a look. No, I think that actually might be it. So I suppose I'll end with the question that I've not been asked, and I think you probably all already know the answer to this particular question. How long do I plan on commentating for? And the honest answer to that question is as long as humanly possible, because I absolutely love it. There's no two ways about it. It is the best job in BMX. I'm incredibly privileged to be a part of it. Whether it's, doing Fast Friday at Midlancs BMX Club 5 minutes down the road from where I live. I have as much fun doing novice racing at a Midlancs Club race as I have at a World Cup. It's all the same. It's BMX commentary. I love doing it. I love, helping people to make memories. I've said on numerous occasions, if a rider only ever wins like one national in their life when they're about 12, and mum and dad pull the video out at the 21st birthday party, and my commentary's in the background, and people either notice it, talk about it, or in some other way that it just really sticks in people's minds, then I know I'm doing my job properly, and I intend to do that job for as long as I possibly can, because yeah, I absolutely love BMX racing. It's as simple as that. It is the best sport on two wheels. So yeah, you stuck with me for a while longer. You're going to have to, put up with this slightly annoying northern accent, but, it's what I love to do. So, and anybody who's ever come over to me and, paid me a compliment on my commentary or said that it means something to them, I can tell you now it means far more to me. The fact that you've taken the time to come over and speak to me and tell me that it means something to you, it just makes it all worthwhile. And if I help you make memories that last a lifetime, then yeah, mega. Can't ask for anything more. So anyway, that's me done. 55 minutes nearly. So, I think you've heard enough now, to be quite honest. I'm just rattling on. So, yeah, thank you if you've stuck with it for this long. Thank you very much. But yeah, don't hesitate to come over and speak to me at a national. I'm not a difficult guy to find. Just come over, say hello, have a chat, whatever it might be. Anybody within UK BMX racing or BMX racing around the world, I am down to have a chat to. Just come over and introduce yourself and let's have a natter, because I just like meeting new people. So yeah, that's it. Episode of the 17. Ask me anything. Done, dusted. We'll see you for episode 18 and we'll be back with a guest and you don't have to listen to me for as long. Cool. Thanks a lot. See you soon.
Thanks for listening to the BMX Commentator Podcast, the raddest thing to come out of Wigan since Pool's Pies and the A49. Don't forget to hit the follow button wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to share this episode on your social media channels. To get in touch with the show, drop an Instagram DM to @BMX Commentator. Now, get your ass out to the BMX track and get racing. We'll see you for another show very soon.